And today, as we talk about depression, that's going to be one of the key ingredients that we bring up over and over again. And in order to do that, one of the powerful things over this series is hearing stories from people here at our church and what they've experienced. So I would love to be able to invite out, and I want you guys to give a big, huge, warm round of applause for Pastor Mark and Jeannie Grochocki. Why don't you welcome them here today? Thank you guys so much for coming. And once again, you guys are bouncing back and forth between here and Buckeye, so just to give you guys an orientation, you're in Goodyear right now. So
good to know.
Yeah.
It smells better here, so that's good.
Don't tell that in Buckeye. All right. So each week we've tried to kind of lay out several different experiences with each topic that we're doing. And I think the power of your guys' story here today is because we saw earlier how many people suffer from depression, how many people experience that. Well, for every single one of those people experiencing suffering depression, there is a whole group of people that are their friends, that are their coworkers, that are their spouse, and they're helping them out there. So that's really the dynamic we want to share here today. So Jeannie, would you start off by sharing your story? And then we'll have Mark kind of share his part there a little bit later.
Absolutely. From a very young age, I realized how different my family was and how different I were from other students in my class. I wasn't able to come to the carpet without excruciating pain because of the physical abuse that I would receive at home. I wasn't able to do swings or run or these types of activities, and had to wear really long dresses and make sure that I was covered up because of the physical abuse, the bruises that I had experienced from my family. Growing up in a pastor's home, I, again, had this difficult time just fitting in with other children because of the abuse. At age 11, around 4th or 5th grade, I really started to get heckled at school and because people started to notice really the abuse that my parents would not only portray to us, but to others. And so it just became this very uncomfortable life that I had to live. So I began to compartmentalize my life, my home life and my school life, and I began to put boundaries around my emotions. And I say that my parents literally beat the emotions out of me. So I wasn't able to feel happiness or sadness, cry, or have any type of emotion without receiving more abuse. So I really put this buffer around myself, and I told myself there are no emotions that are okay to have. So I, again, didn't express joy, happiness, sadness. I was just trying to protect myself from this deep, dark pain that I had to experience on a daily basis. And so around the age of 15, I couldn't build enough walls. I was in such a deep, dark place. I hated my parents. I hated myself for not sticking up for myself, for not telling, not sharing. And it became this circle of deep depression and anxiety on a constant basis to where I could no longer function. And I began to really tell myself, there is got to be a way out of here. There's got to be something that I can do for myself so that I really can move forward. I could not see any other path but to say, I want to be with Jesus. And so I decided that the only way to get to Jesus would be to end my life. And so one afternoon, I took pills. I just could not contain the emotions and the walls started crumbling around me, and I started feeling all this depression and anxiety all at once. And so after taking the pills, I obviously became violently sick and was rushed to the hospital and had spent the night in the hospital. I had my stomach pumped, and the medical staff was able to save my life, but God saved my life, right? He's the one that saved my life. So when I look at that time, I thought, yes, this is going to be it. Everybody knows I've been abused. Everybody knows now that, you can't treat me this way. And I went home, and I was expecting a different home life, and that wasn't the case. The home life was worse, to the fact that if I exhibited any emotions, the statement around the house was, don't make her mad, she'll kill herself. And so it just spiraled and continued to spiral to be the super, super heavy, depressive state that I was in. And so then I decided at that point, okay, I'm going to get out of here, but it's not going to be, I'm not going to go this route of taking my life. I'm going to try the route of marrying the first person that comes along. And I did. I got married at a young age. I had 2 beautiful babies by 3 years of our marriage. It just was not a great marriage, obviously, and continued to isolate and continued to build those walls. And again, after 3 years, we were divorced. And I had found myself with no job, living in my car, homeless, and just really trying to take in, what is this? I thought life was going to get better, and now it's worse. You think you're at a low point when you're living in your car, but the lowest point is when you are begging for food and you're begging for places to stay from your friends. So I began to see just a little pathway to try and get out of it. So I turned to alcohol and partying, and had thought I was finding satisfaction in that, and it wasn't. It was just another tunnel of regret and depression and anxiety, and not, again, able to be myself. And so one night after partying, I believe God spoke to me and said, I had spared your life for a reason. And at that time I was questioning, do I even believe in God anymore? Am I too far gone? What is this life about? So I decided that night to go back to school, and I thought, yes, here's the fix. This is going to be amazing. I can reinvent myself. Nobody knows me here. My past isn't catching up to me. And that wasn't the case. I was isolated. All the things I thought would be a great joy, I had nobody. It was just me. And in that, again, no emotions were able to come out. I couldn't be myself. So at that point, I turned to the very person that I knew that would rescue me from that. And I went to the local church my first year of college, and I started going back to church, and I met Mark my first year in college, and there was something different about him. When I was around him, I was comfortable, I was at peace, I was able to express my happiness, I was able to start being myself, and so we've been married 20 years, and so very exciting. So.
Thanks for sharing that, Jeannie. You summarized a long story there so briefly. But I love how you ended that, the fact that you reached out to God and he connected you with other people. You got plugged into a church. You made some authentic relationships, which were different than any other relationship
Absolutely.
you had before. And that's your fill in there, your heel step is to reach out to God and reach out to other people there. And Mark, you were on the other end of that, but you didn't know what an important role you were playing. I mean, you're just a college student, right?
Yeah, right. I was, just a mature 18-year-old that had life figured out. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a great household, and so I had no idea about abuse or what it was. And when I met her, I mean, she always has this smile on. She's this joyful person, and she's absolutely beautiful. And so I was like, great. I just wanted to hang out with her, wanted to go on dates with her, and we started dating. And after about 6 months, we got married. I don't recommend after 6 months getting married for anybody, but that's okay. People were giving us the advice as we got married of, hey, your first year, it's always the most difficult. You're trying to figure out life. You're trying to figure out how each other works. And so I was kind of gearing up for that this was going to be, a difficult first year. But to be honest, our first year was amazing. Like, we never fought. We never argued at all. Like, she never disagreed with anything. She was always happy. And I mean, it was great, but it was also kind of creepy at the same time of, like, everyone said it was going to be so terrible, and it's the furthest thing from that. But there would be these few moments that would pop up. There would be these moments where she would actually cry herself to sleep. And I'd be like, what is wrong? What's going on? And she would always just say, I just want to see my daughters more. I just want to see my daughters more. And so for me, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I'm a fixer. I'm a guy that likes to, if I see a problem or I see somebody hurting, I just want to dive in. I want to fix it. I want to change it. I want to figure out everything that's happening in it. And so I did. I was like pushing on her of like, okay, well, let's go talk to your ex-husband. Let's get more time with them. Or I know you're not talking to your parents right now, but let's go and talk with them. I had no idea about her whole backstory in that. And I kept pushing to say, let's go do this. Let's fix this. Let's have these conversations. Let's change this. And we would never argue about it, but she would always just say, no, that's okay. We never fought and argued, but I could tell the more that I pushed, the more that I said, let's do this, there became this distance between us, that I could see this wall she was actually putting up. And the more that I was trying to do the right thing, to fix, to make her happy or anything else, the worse it was actually getting. We weren't connected at all in this. And so I realized that as I pushed her, it wasn't working, so I needed to do something different. And so I remember one night that it was a low point for her, that she was crying herself to sleep, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to sit with her. And so I did. I just sat next to her, and I just held her hand. And there was something different about that time. I didn't say a single word to her at all, but I could sense that there was almost just a little bit of peace or relief. Just physically, I could see it in her. And so I started to do that just more and more. Every time she had one of these low moments or one of these low days, I just sat with her and I was present with her. And as I did that, month after month, I started to notice that she would start to share with me. And I started to hear more and more stories about her past, more and more stories about her first marriage and about her childhood and abuse that she had experienced. And I started to get to see and hear all about her. And I started to get to know her better, and we started to actually connect just as a married couple better. And what I realized in those moments, that I was trying to force her to get to a place, trying to force her to have hope, when it was impossible in those moments when she was experiencing Great Depression. It was impossible for her to have hope. But what was possible was that I was able to have hope for her. I was able to hold hope for her. And so in those moments, even though she didn't have hope, she was no longer isolated. She was no longer alone. And she was able to sit there in some intense pain, but still be able to understand that she wasn't alone and that there was somebody that was holding hope for both of us in this. And so in those moments, I think I just saw this change in her as she continued to just move forward and just to open up more and more. I mean, to be honest, 10, 15 years ago, there would be no way she would be on stage here sharing her story that she has. So I see what God has done in her life in it.
I love that. And that's actually your help step. So we always have a heal step for the person that's experiencing the issue, and then the help step, how can we help them? Bring hope. Bring hope. When a person is feeling hopeless, we can't convince them to have hope. We can't preach hope. We can preach it, but they're not going to be listening. We just bring it. Like, I have hope, and I'm just going to be here next to you sharing that. I just love that picture of it. Now, at this point, some of you guys that know Pastor Mark and heard the message a couple weeks ago, like, that's easy for you to say, Pastor Mark, you're a trained professional counselor. Like, you have all of these tools, all of this, skills and all that stuff. So, of course, you're going to be the best husband and know how to deal with this. But that's actually not the case, right?
Yeah, I have all the answers. I don't know why she doesn't listen. Her favorite phrase actually is, I'm not one of your clients, Mark, thanks. Yeah, being a counselor hasn't helped that much.
It hasn't, no.
So if you're here today, your spouse does not need you to be their counselor. Your friend does not need you to be their counselor. Your sibling, your coworker does not need you to be. They might need a counselor, but it's not you. It's not you. You just need to be present. You just need to be able to sit there and listen and to have that authentic relationship. That's your role. And that's something that everyone here is qualified to do. Can you do this? Great, you're perfect. You're perfect. You can do this. So I know you guys have so many different, there's so many different life lessons here as we were just kind of talking about your story this week. But if you were to boil down just one thing you would love people to walk away with, Jeannie, what would it be?
I'd really want you to know that you're not too far gone, that your loved one, your family member, your friend, you're not too far gone.
That's so good.
We've tried to live our life kind of this understanding and idea that nothing will ever be wasted. no matter what hurt, no matter what pain you've been through, no matter what you've experienced, God is going to use all of it. You're never too far gone. God is going to use every bit of it. Nothing will be wasted.
That's perfect. Thank you guys so much for being willing to share.